So it's our great pleasure to welcome to our 2020 Online Trend Summit, Debbie Higgins, Operations Manager, and Jordan Toft, Executive Chef from Merivale Group in Sydney, Australia. Hospitality has had to pivot into restaurant quality at home propositions. We've seen a huge amount of that over the last few months. And Merivale were one of the really early movers, quickly shifting and adapting your restaurant and chef brands into direct to consumer. So I'd really like to talk about how you did it, what you learned, and what the future for Merivale at home looks like. Debbie, Jordan, welcome to the summit. Can we just start by setting the scene? Who are Merivale and what do you do as a business?
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. Okay, so hi to everyone watching. Merivale is a New South Wales, Sydney hospitality group that has over 80 plus brands, from restaurants, hotels, to pubs, clubs. We have a real array of venues in which we operate. It's a family-owned business. Our CEO, Justin Hemis, runs our business day to day with his sister Bettina, who's the stylist and the interior designer for our venues. We're very blessed by having some amazing venues, not only by location, but by look and feel. So that's who we are, and we operate those throughout, and we're a real driven hospitality group that's really focused on the guest experience, not just what's on the plate or what's going into your glass, but also how a particular space might make you feel, or something that it might evoke for you. So it's a really unique business that we love working for.
Well, I've certainly got lots of great memories of visiting some of your fabulous outlets in and around Sydney. I have to say Fred's is one of my favourites, and had a number of fabulous experiences in there. If I might start with what might sound like an obvious question, but what inspired Merivale at home? Was it totally driven by COVID-19, or actually was this something that you were considering anyway?
Listen, I think from a project point of view, we've always talked about taking particular areas of our business on the road, or something a little bit different to outside of our bricks and mortar that we own. We've always had a desire to do it, but we've never really had the time, the space, the resource. So I think what COVID gave us is that time and space, and also freed up the talent that we have in our business, the likes of Jordan and his executive chef team, mixologist, our bar expertise team, to really be able to focus on a common goal of delivering something different. And that was what the result was of Merivale at home. So it was always in the pipeline. It just gave us the space to do it.
Yeah, I think Merivale is a progressive business that is always looking for new opportunity. We only have to look to the owners of our business. We've always got new projects on the horizon, some in the works, and new things happening. And our boss really looks, I guess, easily swayed by brilliance might be a terminology. So whether that be people, place, product, we're always looking to innovate and move forward. Therefore, when the pandemic hit and we were forced to close down, this idea gained legs, so to speak, and gave us the opportunity to find a silver lining. Gave us an opportunity, once we had to go through formalities with our staff and our stand down, to give us the opportunity to get it off the ground and to really come together and mobilize super quickly to come up with some ideas of where we could continue to engage our guests and customers in the way that we love to.
Could you just sort of bring to life to us, we talk about sort of direct to consumer and restaurant quality food at home. Can you just describe the kind of proposition to us? What is Merivale at home?
I think it's multifaceted. At the core of the business, we stood behind some of the brands that we had, and we chose some of those brands, and then the talent behind those brands, like myself and others in the exec chef team. It was a very, unique talent pool that we had, and it was around creating those experiences that our guests get to experience in venue. And we chose half a dozen of those restaurant side of our business to as the genesis of the idea. We also incorporated some of our fresh food or some of our partnership deals with food so that our guests could get some of the restaurant quality produce that we use, along with aligning that with our drinks program and cocktail program that we have, wine program that we have. Ultimately, that resulted in fresh produce line. It resulted in menus almost ready with minimal intervention by our consumer to finish at home, but also enough for them to feel like they've contributed, and then our beverage line as well.
So and you touched on it a little bit there, Jordan, actually. What do you think the role of Merivale at home was for diners in that kind of lockdown environment? What did it give them, if you like?
Well, I guess it's how you look at it from when we started, in the middle, and where we are now. And I think there's different ways at looking at it. Originally, It was to continue connection. It was to continue the conversation with our guests and that connection that we have with them. We think about things, or I think about things when we're coming up with a new concept about what are we creating for our guests to want to come to, what do they walk into, what do they experience while they're here, and what do they walk away with, and making sure that all of those are taken care of. So equally, when we thought about that guest, it's what's the connection, what's bringing them to the table, what are we producing, what are we sending them, what's their experience while they have it. And so ultimately it was to continue that relationship that we had with them. And as we got going, we mobilized extremely quickly and got this off the ground. But it was also realizing that birthdays don't stop, anniversaries don't stop. Those celebratory periods in people's lives don't stop. And in a world that had so much unknown, we wanted to try and create a sense of place, of experience, and a little connection with what those people understand and enjoy. And that comfort really boils down to guest engagement and guest experience, which I think is what this company is all about.
Yeah. And how do you feel the role? I absolutely get that, and the role during perhaps the period of lockdown. How do you think that role for diners is sort of metamorphosizing, I suppose, into something new now? What does it give them now versus in the kind of period of lockdown?
I think the Merivale home brand is and what we're doing with it is going to evolve from expansion conversations to, how do we make that feel so good when they could come to one of our restaurants at home? They have to both coexist, but they both coexist in a different landscape. And I think it gives our guests and our consumers the ability of choice, and the ability to do something that possibly they have never thought they were able to do, like have a catered event at their home, have family dinner where they feel like they've contributed to that meal, which might give them another connection to that particular family dinner or that date or that something. They've got to coexist. So in the future, this is something for us for a while. We've got lots of ideas. The executive chefs are working on innovation and what it looked like 6-12 months away from now. But this is when you have options now, and life is very complex. So people may not be able to go out all the time, or their life situation has changed. So it's provided a lot of choice for our guests.
I think it, like anything, we're still in moving parts of what this whole pandemic means across multiple kind of demographics and what it means to us. We don't know if we're on our way out. We don't know if it's going to come back. We don't know. And I think what we do well is we pivot well, and we try and look for that silver lining, or to find some advantages during these uncertain times. So a little bit different, our businesses, we like to build them and work off the foundations while evolving our business, but stay true to our ideology and the fundamentals of what that business is. Whereas this is constantly evolving. We're trying to keep our finger on the pulse, not pivot so much that we lose our identity or what we're trying to do. I think keeping ourselves to its kind of formwork and its identity, like the bricks and mortar business, but also reevaluating and working out where some of those advantages are, where we can give back to our guests, where we can heighten our guests' experience on a constant level. I think, not everything's going to be the same as it was 6 months ago or as it was last month in 6 months. But I think the environment has changed and people are going to look to this as another avenue to entertain, another avenue to add value to their personal experiences, their family experiences. And there's something about, if I heard correctly, the idea of it is that these packages can come home and make those people look good. You might look at it in a publication and see these beautiful dinner parties. Well, this gives you a little bit of a step up to getting along there and getting it done properly.
The next logical question for me, and I'm sure everybody that's listening, is: does this, the broader concept of at home, have legs beyond this particular era that we're in? Is this a new future route to market? And I know you can't, we don't have a crystal ball to see into the future, but I'd love your perspective on that. Is there a future around at home?
We believe there is. We don't think we've found the pinpoint, the nirvana yet on what we're offering to what consumers require. Obviously, it's going to evolve as we come out of restrictions. But from a business point of view, we're currently operating under restrictions. So we have a finite number of people that we can have in all our restaurants, and we are day to day maxing out on those numbers. So from a business point of view and a strategic point of view, there is a desire to have our guest experience, the things that we can provide at home. Now, what does that feel like in 12 months? I can't articulate to you, and I have a passion that this is something that we should continue to offer. Whether that be in the same meal kit opportunity that we have now, I'm not sure. Maybe it might be more of a deli, charcuterie sort of landscape where we're offering some of, Jordan's favourite things, or I don't know. But I think this brand will definitely stay with us for the future. So it'll continue to evolve.
Yeah, the world's not stable, nor is our business plan on this model. But I think it's e-commerce at the end of the day, and e-commerce is not going anywhere. I think general public are buying more and more online. In my opinion, I think people are buying more and more online, so that's sight unseen. They haven't touched it, they haven't felt it. So it comes down to their trust levels within the brand. And I think the trust, they align themselves, they partner with the brand, and then trust that it will be of a certain standard. So I think we can pivot on what we're actually offering depending upon what the needs and necessities are. But really it comes down to that brand association once again, and e-commerce again is not going anywhere. So I see this to continue into the future for us as Merivale. What we offer may change, the standard won't.
Yeah. That's great, and instinctively that feels the same for us, looking at the kind of wider universes at home. And there are lots of operators trying different propositions and experimenting on a kind of micro scale, and it feels that the overall idea of at home has legs as a new route to market. But I think, as you say, depending on local conditions and brands and operating environments, it'll probably look quite differently today to in 12 months' time. And one of the things I'd love to talk to you about, and I know that everybody watching will be really interested to hear, is, in your experience, how different is running an at-home concept versus running a restaurant? What are those differences?
Oh, a lot.
I'm going to pick up one point, because the crew do such a good job at controlling that whole guest experience, and I think the one major difference is that you're not in control of the end result with a home kit. You only can get it to where it can get to, and then you put it in the hands of the consumer, our guests. And I think, our first few weeks of seeing someone saying, my dish didn't come out right, and Jordan's like, well, I can see that you've overcooked it. And all of these wonderful things that we're able to interact with our guests differently, and then, provide a service to replace that so they can actually learn something new. I think that's the part that I found the most challenging personally, as someone front of house, operations, the business project side, is I once we put it into the box and we do our wonderful things, it's out of our control.
Yeah.
And I found that a little challenging personally.
And have you combated that then from, I guess, it's a question for Jordan and yourself, really. How have you, realising that and coming to terms with that, what measures and steps have you put in place to give that advice or guidance so that that exact scenario doesn't happen?
Well, I think, again, different from where we started to where we are now. When we started, we put the right people in the right role to make the right decisions with the best knowledge that they could have. And, we sat and made, I guess, some ground rules, if you like, around making some decisions around that table to work out at what level did we want to take to the food. From before that, we're sticking behind the brand, the brand association. So therefore, what would we accept in a restaurant? How do we get the product to that level? How much do we put in the hands of our guests to do? Where do we use our chef experience and certain techniques to take it, to make it foolproof, if you like, while still giving enough that the guests, they don't feel like they're just, going to a freezer and warming it up. Multiple levels of that common sense approach were really evident at the start. And the question is, how different is it to running a restaurant? Well, it was incredibly different. Yet at the same time, I think we fell back on what we're good at, and that is making intelligent decisions based on outcomes. And we did our best to try and work out where the touch points were and make good decisions based upon that. That's what I'd say was kind of the similarity between running the two. And then if we move forward, equally in that product evolution, what we're offering, versatility, amounts that we're offering without creating, I guess, choice confusion, all the while staying true to our brand and not diversifying, but not diversifying where we confuse the customer base as well.
I think, Charles, I'd like to add one more thing there. One of the big focuses that whilst it cost us money during the pandemic, we were really focused on our guest recovery and guest communication. So once we created the product and we had shipped it to the product to the guest store, there was obviously things that, for whatever reason, manual handling situations that happened. We had the same DNA that we have in our venues when we have to recover a guest that's not happy, or we know that a situation isn't perfect. We had that same lens and that same DNA thread through our communications. So we would deliver that particular product if there was if something had happened. We were still operating as restaurateurs from a customer service point of view in a e-commerce landscape. And I think whilst it was painstaking and laborious in certain moments, on the backside of all of that, when you get through all the challenging first weeks, the amount of respect and gratitude we got from our guests around still keeping the value of quality and the service, and thank you to them for being a guest of ours, it's loyalty we'll never be able to buy.
Yeah.
Well, the idea of the business, first and foremost, was to continue that connection with our guests. So we would have been negligent not to continue that same expectation with our guests and how they expect conversation and communication in that recovery process. So it was an important part for us to continue to bridge that divide.
Yeah.
And it was so lovely. I have to just say one other thing. It was so lovely speaking to people in lockdown because they were so gracious to talk, and we would have lovely conversations and reconnect with human beings in a horrible situation. There was such a beautiful people connection too.
No, that's fantastic. Almost, those human touch points became highly prized, didn't they? And we really kind of valued those. I think from both sides actually, as an operator and the consumer as well, definitely. What parallels can you draw from an operational side? From obviously when you're running a restaurant, when you're running a service, you've got the dynamism of that and all of the different factors that are happening in the moment, different guests coming in at different times, and then when you're running an at-home operation, is that more like running an event? In terms of the scale and the way that you kind of prepare and operate that, I'm imagining it's quite a different mindset.
Yeah, that's my background, events and projects. So I suppose there was a lot of the lens applied from that skill base into this project. I learned that time is money, and so delays in productions and delays in certain areas of that whole delivery time, very much it's very different. But yes, there's a plan, replan, timing methodology that you would apply in events to this sort of operation of this sort of business.
Yeah, I think it's worth saying as well, we're not independent restaurants that basically within our own kitchen just started producing some food and sending it out with a driver at the end of the night. We really had to get across the correct way to do this. We were lucky enough to mobilise. We've recently taken on a space for slightly different purposes, but we're able to purpose it for this. But it becomes quite an event because we're trying to bring quite a few brands under one umbrella, work out how do we produce it the right way, and all of these things are on the fly, but how do we produce it the right way with the right collateral and get it to the guest the safest way in the right amount of time as well. So all of those factors were a big part of trying to get it all together very quickly so that we delivered on what we were selling.
Yeah. And I suppose that's a lovely segue actually into the fact that I'm certain that in our audience today we'll have operators that are considering at home, and obviously being mindful of the fact that different locales, different geographies are in a different state of evolution in terms of coronavirus and the pandemic. From your point of view, what are the kind of challenges and pain points that an operator should be looking out for when it comes to taking a step into the world of at home? What are some of those learnings that you could share?
From a practical standpoint, like any part of your business, I think you have to move reasonably quickly. I'm probably guilty of procrastinating until it's perfect. In this environment, I think you miss the bus, so to speak. And if the genesis of the idea behind it is to continue connection with your guests rather than a financial gain, you need to pivot reasonably quickly while using all your faculties to get it right, and continue to evolve to get it better and massage it until it continues to get perfect. I think you've got to take into account what happens if you open back up and close and open and close. If you're cooking out of one kitchen, you've really got to take into account, is it viable for you to have both running, to coincide, or, you know, do you have to shut one down to then get it started? So are you up opening, closing, you know, government says you can have 10 people in there. Do you close that whole other arm of your business, or is it still viable? And again, just to touch on it, like any pivot within a business, good financial viability, even if it is as quick as on the back of a coaster, to make sure that you don't hemorrhage more than you're already going to do under these circumstances and during these times that are out of your control, should be done. You know, making sure that you've just made things make sense, and what you're offering and what you're asking for it makes some kind of sense, even if it is to break even. It's an important part that you don't lose more than you're already losing.
Yeah, I would echo the majority of that from Jordan. And maybe in addition to that is, don't spend time on something that's not going to complement your business. Stay true to what you are, because if you create something that's so far away from what you're good at, it is a mountain in which to carry on. And to Jordan's point of, if you have a restriction release open and you can have 10 people in your restaurant, that's certainly not going to make a company or a business thrive. So you may need to do them in conjunction. So they've got to complement each other. And if you're not passionate about it, the guest will know. And I think it's important to also talk to when you're leading people in this situation. Everyone has such a different experience around COVID and a different family situation or whatever it might be. Don't miss the opportunity to connect with people in this time, because that will be fruits of your business as well, not only with guests but also with staff.
Those are the wise words. Is there one, I guess, as we think about the in-home experience, I was just thinking for a moment, we've seen and read a lot about what we've called tablescaping, which is not only about the food but the whole kind of environment that goes with that and the plateware. And that sort of leads me to think, you know, is there an opportunity to create even more of an experience, as it were, you know, for you, by leveraging your chefs and your brands and everything that kind of sits around the food itself? Is that something you've considered for the future?
Yeah, we actually just launched about 4 weeks ago an extension of Merivale at Home called Merivale at Home, and it's called Entertaining. And so it's the same meal kits and our beverage add-ons that come with that package. But we also send you staff and we send you a waiter. And if you want our tablecloths, we can buy our tablecloths. If you wish to have flowers, our florist can do that. So we have looked at how we can help bespoke some of that, but still keeping it really simple for the consumer. And that if it is something where it's, you know, you're just having friends over, it's a special occasion, we can do that for you. But we've got endless opportunity. We actually just did one last week. The gentleman bought all our cutlery, bought all of the tablecloths, the linen, everything. So yeah, we're definitely in that market, and people like it. They like our aesthetic, they like our taste. So if we can put a little touch of something in someone's home, it's a little mark to Merivale.
I think we started thinking about it in its own way early on, and so along with those menus came the people behind each brand doing a cooking demonstration that was uploaded and cut in a way that showed the person talking through their product. So that gave a little connection around that. We obviously added early on packages that made sense from a beverage perspective, so that, you know, if we talk about the Burt's package, and I think you might be familiar with Burt's, but, you know, there was the martini to start, and then the white burgundy to have with your first course, and then et cetera through. We then quickly added on playlists. So you could sit down to that meal, have your aperitif with your partner or with your guests, put on the playlist that wasn't exactly what was in the restaurant, but gave reverence to that experience. And so they were always creating experiences, was always at the forefront. And now we're taking that new, and you spoke earlier about the evolution of where our business is going. These are some of those ideas, and, you know, the beginning of Merivale at Home Entertaining is, I guess, a little bit of what else do people want to see? So in the background, we're getting ready. We're coming up to the festive season. We're putting on, certain collateral, certain bits and pieces that come out of our businesses that people might want to see. And a lot of that was derived early on, thinking about people's anniversaries. So how are we aligning with that time they had it at Bert's, that time they had it at Fred's, that time they had it at Mr. Wong, all of these experiences to try and give the opportunity for our guests to either experience it or produce something that their guests could experience, therefore showing more care, more love, and what we try and do, which is bring people around a table to communicate and enjoy.
Debbie and Jordan, that has been a fascinating insight into the world of direct-to-consumer and your experiences of delivering right from inception Merivale at Home. It's been a great pleasure to welcome you to our 2020 Online Trend Summit, and thank you for joining. And also, thank you for joining without the beach scene in the background to make us all extremely jealous.
We should have had martinis.
Yeah, we should have brought you into the experience and had a meal together at the same time. But yes, we decided not to show you our beautiful late spring weather today and beautiful white sand beach here on the eastern suburbs of Sydney. But we thought that might be just rubbing salt into a wound.
Well, it's greatly appreciated, I'm sure, by everybody watching today. So Debbie and Jordan, thank you so much for joining today. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you and to hear and for you to share your experiences. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you.
Take care.